My daughter said, "No, mommy, that's the actual date. You've been in a coma for 2.5 months." And then I went to try to write something and started crying because I couldn't write my name. I feel like I'm shamelessly dependent on God, meaning I'm the type of person's like, "God, should I eat a sandwich today or should I eat?" When
Girl,
God,
you are singing my song. I literally say that. Me too. Like I literally say, God, I'm sorry. Like I even say it. And sometimes I'll talk to him full blown in the middle of the day going, are you serious right now?
You're rushing to the hospital. Something is really wrong. Was it the medicine you just started taking? As the emergency doors open and you rush in, your last thought is, someone please tell my daughter I'm going to be okay. But it wasn't okay. Serumaga was given only a 1% chance of survival after a doctor mistakenly administered the wrong medication. Elle lay in a coma for 2 months. The doctors told her family it was time to let her go. As her family stood by in despair, Elle's spirit slipped away. She was pulled into a realm of light. She saw the future of the planet, its struggles, its hope. A surge of clarity rushed through her. This is not the end. She had a purpose, and she woke up. After having to relearn to walk and write, she dedicated her life to genetic medicine. She is determined to give back, to give the best version of herself and change the world one discovery at a time. Raw and real, here is Elle Serumaga.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing so well. I'm branched off onto my own podcast, so
Mhm.
it's been great. It's just amazing. What's going on?
Right.
Tell me what's going on. What's new with you since I last talked with you?
Doing more in genetics, and just learning a lot and um, excited.
Boyfriend?
I've found, and I share this with my daughter too, since my NDE, my priorities are different in regards to relationships and even, just what I place importance on. So it's more kind of like, what can I give the world of myself as a,
Oh,
that's and what can I enjoy and take from the world, the lessons from this life. So that's like more important to me.
and just a side note too. And I
Mhm.
know I've said this to you, but
Mhm.
my interview with you on my other podcast
Mhm.
was one of, if not my favorite one. I
Oh.
felt like, and I think you know this, but if you don't, I was
Mhm.
the person on the podcast that was sort of stepping in with just a toe into that world that I had
Mhm.
no idea about. And I was coming from a direction of trying to bridge that gap with people who don't know, maybe
Mhm.
want to know. And I found yours personally so enlightening, mostly I think because of your relationship with the Bible and your
Mhm. Mhm.
spirituality, and that's something
Mhm.
I could hone in with. So anyway, I
Mhm.
just wanted to tell you that because I think you're awesome, and I'm
Aw,
so
thank
happy that
you.
you
You're
said
so
yes.
sweet.
Previously to the NDE, you were already going through some medical issues. Walk me through what that looked like before you got to the point where they actually said to you, you have 1% chance of survival.
Well, the irony is before this all happened to me, I was pretty healthy. I almost never got sick. I used to eat organic. I was just kind of like felt it was really important what you put in your body, and I was careful of doing that. So I never got the flu. So I never got the flu shot. So that was the irony of it. And then when I got this, infection, which is how everything started, I started recovering from the infection in the hospital. And then all of a sudden, I had a reaction to a medicine. And then that kind of was, I started having kidney failure, lung failure. My body was, deteriorating. So I was induced in a coma so they could take pressure off my body. And because they couldn't figure out how to stabilize me. And yeah, they ultimately, at the end, where they were trying to convince my family to take me off of life support, they said, she has less than a 1% chance of survival. And they said if I was going to survive, that I would be in a vegetated state, and that, that the brain could not survive the level of carbon dioxide that my
Right.
brain was exposed to.
That Let me ask you something, simply because I went through sort of the same thing with my mother. When they tell your family this,
Hmm.
do they make that decision at that moment to say, no, we want to continue, we believe she's going to come out of it? Or is that something that they decided? Who decided to keep you going?
My family did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they try to,
Wow.
they come from different angles. I tell people,
Whoa.
like, medical advocacy, this is medical advocacy advice. Make sure that if whether it's you or somebody else that in your family or close friend that you're seeing, make sure that you realize your power and your voice, and that you can make decisions for the situation, because they tried multiple times to try to get my family to take me off of life support. They wouldn't budge up until the end, when they said, there's really nothing else we can do. And they finally said, we've got to take her. We've got to take her off. She has a less than 1% chance of survival. But what they did was a new angle. They said, we have an oscillator. It's in the basement. It's old technology. Nobody knows how to use it. We're going to bring somebody in. We're going to switch her from life support to this oscillator. It's going to take pressure off of her lungs. And if she survives, then we'll put her. They didn't say if she survives, but they said we'll switch her out. Translation, what was really happening is they were using that as an opportunity to take me off life support, in their mind, knowing that I was going to crash, and that would
Wow.
be it. Okay. So what happened was is they went to take me off. I began to crash, and then all of a sudden I started breathing on my own. So they were legally obligated to put me on the oscillator to help support my breathing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's the only reason I'm here.
That is
Is,
nuts.
you know, so yeah.
While you were under, you have made several statements saying that keep talking to that person, because
Hmm.
there is something there that they're
Hmm.
hearing, and
Yeah.
that to me feels like that this was part of that journey for you back to the side.
Yes. When somebody's in a coma, when I was in a coma, I went in and out of my body. And from what I understand, I think in general, people go in and out of their body. Some people will walk down the hallway of the hospital that they're in. Some people will be over their body, which I was over mine at one point when in a procedure room. I remember being out of my body and in a different dimensional realm. And then I heard singing. And then it's like as quick as an atom, like as an atomic particle moves, I was like back in my body in the hospital, hearing the and seeing everybody singing, or not everybody, but there were a couple of people that were singing by my bedside some spiritual songs to me. So that's how we move. That's how we're meant to move, actually, is that freely and interdimensionally. We're interdimensional beings, but in that state, of course, you just automatically experience it. So it's important for people to keep talking and encouraging the people that are there, praying for them, things like that, because we hear it, we can see it, we hear it, and it does encourage us to stay.
I'm glad they kept you on, and I'm glad they
Hmm.
sang to you. Wasn't it your church friends that came and sang for
Yeah.
you?
Hmm.
Oh.
It was a church, actually, that I used to go to.
Really? Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, that's how much people love you. That's awesome.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had heard, and they came, like, quite a few of them came, and I had like family and friends in different countries even praying for me. And so I had a lot of people praying for me.
That's because you're amazing and you were meant to be
Oh,
back here, right? You have this near-death experience.
mm-hmm,
You are on the other side.
mm-hmm.
Walk us through when you realize, because obviously that's probably black, and then all of a sudden you sort of awake on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through that?
Yeah, so I don't remember the time where, where your eyes close and then you
Yeah,
open.
right. That's
Yeah,
that blackness. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Then, so I don't remember experiencing the blackness. I just remember I was in this world and all of a sudden I had a continuation in another world. And that was like I didn't know what happened. I didn't know. I thought that that was life. And I thought that that was, for a while until I had three guides that kind of came forward and explained to me just different things about life. And also, I had a lot of questions once I realized that I was in a different, reality or a different, I was in the spirit realm. I had a lot of questions like, tell me about this. I want to know why this is that way. And one of the guides was answering my questions, but he didn't speak a lot. He was everything was telepathic. And so he would just kind of like say merge, and then I would merge into that thing or experience. And then through experiencing, I would learn and understand. And then, then I would be pulled out of that and then merge into something else. So that's everything was very like the learning was not really with words or explanation. It was more experience and emotion. And it's like you feel it in your soul, like your soul was just connecting immediately.
Were you ever nervous or afraid or anything on that side?
Like in all of the interviews I've done, nobody's ever asked me that
Well,
simple.
because I'm sitting, you just did it so perfect. I'm sitting in your shoes going, damn, I would be like, what the F is going on? Like what?
Yeah.
And you see three people and you don't know them. I think one you had said was, just from my previous interview, looked
Hmm.
like your daughter.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm blown away by the question because
Yeah, please
it's
answer.
simple. Yeah, it's simple. It's a simple question, but it's like, yeah, that's right. Nobody asked, if I was afraid. And it kind of speaks to some of the lessons that I learned. Like, it's the simple things that is really what life is about. Like, we overcomplicate
Yeah,
everything.
don't we?
So, I wasn't really afraid. I didn't feel any type of fear. I felt more curiosity, and I felt love,
That's
and
good.
I felt some protection, intrigued, you know, like with some of the things that I didn't necessarily understand. And there were some things that I didn't like, like when I saw some prophetic things of the world, prophetic things about my life and different experiences. So those were more, I didn't really feel fear.
Well, that's good
Yeah.
because I think I don't, obviously I don't know how I would feel. I haven't gone through
Hmm.
that. I think we're all afraid of dying. Most
Hmm.
of us who haven't gone through an NDE. And I will tell you after hearing your story and really feeling like I'm living through it with you because
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
are telling a great story.
Hmm.
I don't have that fear as much as I used to. Like, I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. Elle said
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
before everything happened to me, I did have a fear of death. And it was more like of the experience. I don't have a fear of the experience of death any longer. I do have a fear of loss, FOMO, and that's because I have a child. But
Oh,
other
yeah.
than that,
Right,
I
right,
don't,
right, right, right.
yeah, other than that, I don't fear it.
There's this quote that you said that literally blew my mind. And I'm like, wow. So I'm going to say the quote and I want to talk about that just a little bit. And I'm going to have you quote it because basically,
Okay.
let you, I don't know if you remember, but it was something about the spiritual world meeting the medical world and what that meant with the left and right hand. Do you remember that quote you said?
No, I don't.
Oh God, it's so good. You should like coin it. Basically, yeah, no joke. But basically what you said was the fact that the spiritual world and the medical world have all this angst and hatred sort of toward each other is like your left arm hating your right arm.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh my God.
Hmm.
That was the point where I had that paradigm shift saying, oh my goodness, it's okay for me to believe in the Bible, but also to believe in this too.
In
Because it
science, yeah.
does, there's this conflicting thing. It's like,
Hmm.
it's very conflicting for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
especially someone who, like you, is very, into your faith. And then having this experience and how you've been able to bridge that gap in your own person. I wish like a lot of us out there, I feel like it's, no, I don't believe in that. They don't even give it a chance.
I feel like I'm shamelessly dependent on God, meaning I'm the type of person's like, God, should I eat a sandwich today or should I eat? When
Girl,
God,
you are singing my song. I literally say that. Me too. Like I literally say, God, I'm sorry. Like I even say, and sometimes I'll talk to him full blown in the middle of the day going, are you serious right now? Like
right?
totally
When
God can have a
when
sandwich going.
God, when God literally does not care,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. He's like, do what you
So
need to do. Free will, dude.
right, exactly. That being said, the science is the left hand and divinity is the right hand, if and spirituality is the right hand. If they got along, if they worked together, then our world would be advanced. We wouldn't have as many hurting people, which is, a lot of what happens in our world, and we would be able to understand not only other people but our own power in a more direct way. Usually we understand our power in indirect ways through having a near death experience or you know completing a task that was elusive and something that we wanted to do, and or losing all the weight we wanted to. It's like all of these indirect ways that we find out our power when it could be so much more direct. It's important to be able to explore both. There are people like Dr. Eben Alexander. He was a neurosurgeon, and he had a near death experience, or he experienced a near death experience. And there are other, after the first podcast that I did ever, a doctor emailed me and said he had a near death experience and he hadn't spoken about it for like 9 years. He was afraid to because it's a little taboo in the medical world to even think, that
Right.
people could go through that and experience that. But it's important for people to know that, science is our friend as much as spirituality is our friend.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. And
Mhm.
you just nailed it on the head with the taboo of, funny enough, when I was doing Ethereal Edge and really loving everything I was learning, that taboo, when I started Ethereal Edge, like I said to them, I'm going to a conference this weekend. And I would tell my staff what I was, going to do. And they would
Mhm.
just poke me and make fun of me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, at first it was like, oh yeah, and then as I was like meeting people like you,
Mhm.
I've been blown away. I'm like, I feel like my eyes opened and my whole world opened,
Mhm.
the loving God and Jesus, and then the
Mhm.
woo woo part of it.
Mhm. Right.
And giving yourself permission to have both.
Mhm.
So speaking of woo woo, I'd love you to get into, seeing the Akashic records and what
Mhm.
that experience was like for you.
Yeah. Well, before, when I'd heard about the Akashic records, which I didn't really know much about the Akashic records before all of that, but I imagined a place of a hall of records, like books and scrolls and things like that. For me, I saw, and I think it's different for everyone, just like the soul's experience is for everyone. For me, it was more like a holodeck that you'd see on Star Trek, where you step into that period in time and then you learn, you go through the experience and learning. So that's what it was for me. And I didn't know that the Akashic Records was an actual thing, like scientifically as well. I thought it was completely metaphysical talk, woo woo, and everything. And found out after the fact that Nikola Tesla first stated that there was a hall of records based on Akasha that existed scientifically or in the universe, and it was based on physics, not metaphysics. So that's an example of like spirit and science. And Nikola Tesla said that he got a lot of information about his theories and experiences from a divine spirit and from the Akashic records. So then I thought, okay, well, this is not that crazy, you know. So the Akashic records is interdimensional. So it's like records of not just what's happened in this dimension, but it's other dimensions as well. Now, I will say that the church that I used to go to was very fundamental Christian, and of course they wouldn't think or talk anything about that. But I think with everyone, they have to explore for themselves what resonates. The Bible is filled with lots of depth, a lot of codes, a lot of like metaphors. And so everything is not always cut and dry. That's why there is that scripture, for example, ask, seek, and knock, and the door will be open for you. Because if you think of it, a door is a pathway to a new experience and understanding. So everyone has to kind of seek that out for themselves. It's a part of free will.
Elle, you need to start your own church, the Church of Elle. Because I would join it. I mean, because you're right, like where I feel, and I don't feel alone anymore because, and I actually have another friend of mine who she's right, like with me and you and I, and she also has been, I say awakened on the spirituality of the world and the next dimension. And I firmly, truly believe and agree with you that we are a dimensional species here and that we all live in these different dimensions. I truly believe a lot of the things that I learned on the Ethereal Edge podcast. Talking to people, there's no reason for them. I mean, truth be told, I'll probably edit this out. Truth be told, we had some friends on that I was like, I don't know about that. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not there yet, but I'm open to it. I'm like, if you had asked me 20 years ago, hey, you know what? You can send a song to China and it'll get there in a nanosecond and they can listen to it. I'd be like, you're out of your mind. What are you, a witch? You're like, but that's what we do now. Like that's our world that we live in. Yeah. And like, that's a whole other podcast, but yeah, I didn't know about the Akashic records until I literally was starting to research when we met with you. And then when you were talking about it, I was like, wow, that sounds really great. You should have asked for the lottery numbers while you were there. That's what I'm like. I'm just wondering what the lottery is going to be.
Okay, so the first thing to know is that I would venture to say in about 10 to 15 years, money is not going to be a thing any longer. So we don't need the lottery numbers.
And what is going to be in its place?
We are going to go back to egalitarian system of kind of I wouldn't say like barter and trade. I don't know how to explain it, but it's more.
It's almost a sustainability type thing.
It's kind of like everybody has what they need, but anything above that, they just add into the system of our collective community. But everybody has what they need, and it's not something that's earned. It's more something it's a right, a human right. So you have it. I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but That's one of the things that I did get told from a guide, was that money was going to itself go away as a system. Just going back to, some of the reasoning of that is what I was saying about Nikola Tesla. If you think about it, what stood in the way from what he was sharing from a spiritual and physics and engineering perspective? He was sharing science and spirituality, and he was a very ethical person. So the thing that got in the way from that being spread is money and greed. That's what shut everything down.
Yeah.
We've gone through so many cycles of that where it's clear that money and greed is an opposing force and a dark force to a lot of good that we can achieve in the world. So ultimately, it's going to go away.
I would love that world, and I look
Hmm.
forward to it. So,
Yeah.
what is the last thing that you see or that you experience before you come back to the other side?
Different experiences. For example, in asking why there were certain, why the world was the way it was, I saw some corruption and some corruptive actions. I saw some, some of this like seedier things. And then I would see the experience. My soul would be like, okay, that's enough. And then all of a sudden I was pulled out of that.
Why do you
And
think they
then,
showed you that?
yeah, I was asking a lot of questions like, why do people suffer here? Why is this happening here? What's going on with this? And why is the structure the way it is? Why is the matrix this and that and the other? And so I was shown these different things to answer my question. I was also shown things that I didn't know, that I might have, maybe it was a subconscious question that I didn't really vocalize at the time. Like, I didn't know that everything was conscious, like, plants. So I was told to merge into a tree, other life forms, like a lily and a fish, and
The fish.
I experienced not myself.
Hmm.
I actually was them. So, like, I lost all sense of myself and became the fish. So I had like a fish mentality.
Were you
And
underwater as
yeah,
the fish?
and it was like,
Maybe you
it
weren't a
was,
fish. Maybe you were a mermaid. Just kidding.
no, no, no. I was actually,
You're like, I was a fish.
it was like, I was an orb that went, like, I possessed the fish.
Oh, okay.
So I understand when people get attachments or, whatever, or the spirit is actually in an orb form, like, that's actually our soul, like, right in all of these, in that circle, that's what we are.
What's next?
A light panned around the room, forming a tunnel. It was a really bright light, and then it made like a tunnel shape. And because my mindset was like everything was okay, I didn't think, oh, here it comes. This is the tunnel that they all talk about, that, you see, you're about to cross over. I didn't have any of those thoughts at all. I was just I felt like at peace, and I felt like everything was fine either way. And so I looked at the light, and then my guide was standing with me there, like next to me, like we're about to go somewhere. And then all of a sudden, I was told it wasn't my time. And then the light, like, unpan, like, reversed back around. And that was the last thing that I remembered.
And then you woke up. You remember waking up.
Well, I remember I remember the doctor like coming in at some point, and I had a tracheotomy in, I still have the scar right here. So I wasn't able to speak right away, but I remember feeling very angsty when I fully came to. And when the tracheotomy was taken out, the doctor was snapping his fingers in my face and was saying, like, say something. They wanted to see if my brain was
Yeah,
working
yeah.
and everything else. And the doctor said, say something. And I was really irritated. And I said, something. And my
That's funny.
family and my family in the room, somebody said, "Ah, she's back." And I don't remember who it was that said that, and then a couple people laughed.
Now you're back, and I do want to talk about this briefly because it's really extraordinary. This whole thing, that where you came
Mhm,
from all the way to where you are now, and I don't want to miss anything. The next thing that
mhm.
happens, you have to learn how to walk and basically move again, right?
Yeah,
Almost
yeah,
talk. You could talk a little bit. Walk me
yeah.
through that.
So I didn't know, like I said before, to me, nothing had happened. I saw the whiteboard, where they write the nurses,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
information, whatever. And it said like October something. And I went into the hospital in August. So I looked at one of my family and I was like, I think it was my daughter. I said, stop playing tricks on me, change the date back. And they said, no, that's the actual date. And I didn't believe them. And
How
she's,
my
okay.
apologies. How long
Mhm.
were you under?
I was under for 2.5 months.
Well, how did I not know that? For in my head, it was like a
I
week or
never really
something.
mentioned. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hardly mentioned how long
Oh
it
my
was,
goodness. Like
but yeah,
that's nuts.
yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
you go, it's like it's winter, you wake up and it's summer. I mean, it
Yes,
feels like
exactly. That's what
that.
happened. It was summer and I
Whoa.
woke up and it was like fall.
Yeah.
And my daughter said, "No, mommy, that's the actual date. You've been in a coma for 2.5 months." And then I just started crying because I didn't understand, like it was just hitting me. And I looked at my body and I had atrophy. You know how you lose all your
Yep.
muscle tone?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that, I looked down and then it started clicking. Oh my gosh, you know, I wasn't here. Then I had to recollect, or make sense of the fact that I was somewhere else, and these people in front of me are not going to understand that I was perfectly okay where I was,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm here in this hospital. I couldn't walk, so I like tried to move and I wasn't able to. When I had the trach in, I went to try to write something and started crying because I couldn't write my name. So it was kind of like a shock to me, like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, what happened? Like, why can't I write my name? In fact, I saved that first little scribble
Did
from
you
when
really?
it's for when I tried
Wow.
to write my name. And then I started realizing, like how the ramification, how much damage was done,
Yeah.
um, and had to go through, learn how to walk again, learn how to write, all of these things, and then having the PTSD from that too.
I
Mhm.
was going to ask you, how long do you think you were in how long do you think it took you to get back to being able to walk normally and write and sort of function?
Well, they were forcing me. They were like, "You're gonna get up and walk every day." It I would say it took probably, I would say it took like maybe a month or 2 before I could
Yeah.
really walk again with assistance.
And you mentioned PTSD, and I read one of your
Mhm,
articles where you would get to that fall season, and every
mhm,
year you'd kind of get to this like PTSD, as would your
mhm.
family and your daughter.
Yeah,
Like, what's
yeah.
going to happen? Is it going to happen again? Oh my
Right,
goodness. And then
right.
you walk me through what that felt like, to you now celebrating life at that time because you know how far you've gone.
Right. Well, that first year, oh, that was difficult because
Yeah.
we were literally holding our breath. My daughter was holding her breath. I'm holding mine, wondering if anything's going to happen, if something's going to if a shoe's going to drop right around that same time because I had no treatment plan, I had no resolution, and things like that. And that first year passed, and okay, got through. Okay, here comes the second year. The second year, okay, let's hope that it's not going to happen. And then past that year, and everything was fine. And part of the reason is because people who were on life support, the statistics for people who um, live after they've been on life support are very low. Like
It
most
is.
people die within a year after being on ECMO because of all of the damage to your body. So I didn't like we were constantly running to the hospital for every little thing because I didn't know if I was going to live a year, past a year after being on ECMO, which is life support. I would say like the first 3 years was like, holding our breath right around
Oh,
that time.
yeah.
But after that was then I started to celebrate every year, that and my family the first year, they didn't even tell me the date of my what would have been my death date, which was like September 18th, I think. So they kind of let it pass, but they were looking at me funny the whole time. And then after the date passed, then they were like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And so like they did tell me on the date, this is the date that you were supposed to die. So, but by that time it was like later in the day. So, but yeah. So, but now just kind of celebrate. Now I don't even think about it. The
Yeah.
past few years, that date has come and gone
Good.
and I haven't even thought about it. Yeah.
Till
Hmm.
I brought it up. Sorry. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. Following this experience, you had a very big spiritual awakening.
Yeah. So, like I said, there was no real treatment plan. I felt like a lot of doctors were afraid of me after that. And,
Oh,
just, but not really giving any real solutions other than keep staying medicated, which I was not into doing. And so I started doing my own research and I started, trying to figure out what would be the best treatment plan for me. So after going through some battles with some doctors and then finding some good doctors, um, and then started communicating with them, showing my research and saying, hey, this is a theory I have. What about this? And this is what I found. And, really starting to get some respect because they were, some of them, the research I was presenting was valid. I started to get more support and I started to follow through on some of the things that I was researching. And one of my doctors said, you'd be a really good doctor. You should go into medicine. And I was like, I don't like doctors, so I don't want to be one of them. But then I said, I love the whole process of researching and I like the nerdy parts. So I said, maybe it's something that I would pursue. And I had 3 doctors write me recommendation letters for school, and then I started. I'm about to graduate with in one program this year, this fall,
yay.
and I still have more to continue. So to get to the MD level, but at least this one program will be over, and I'll be um, uh, specialized in pharmacogenetics,
Wow.
which is the first part of my path on the genetics path. That's what I decided to go to pursue. So, yeah,
How many years does it take for you to get where you need to be?
it's going to take me about 3 or 4 more years, depending on
That
what
ain't
credits
nothing.
will transfer. I don't know what
That's
will open.
wonderful. Oh, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
That's just amazing. And I mean, honestly, my eyes are, I didn't know it was 2 months.
Mhm.
To go from that you were supposed to die, they're fighting for
Mhm.
you, literally fighting for your life.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
here you are. Let's switch gears just for a second.
Okay.
What are your hopes for the future? And you had mentioned that we're about to evolve into a different type of society. What are your hopes for the
Mhm.
future and for the world?
Starting at the core of things is that people start to realize their own personal power. I think that it starts there. Everybody needs to realize the depth of how amazing they are and just how beautiful. being, they are as a human being and how powerful they are as a human being, and start honoring their lives that way, doing things that matter and focusing our intention on things that matter. So if you and I do it, that's two of us. And then we talk to others, then there others will join, and then others and others. And that's kind of how a society shifts. And so that's the first thing. My hope for just us as a collective in general is that we start to realize that we're all connected to each other, and we're connected in a spiritual and scientific way, like physics wise. We are actually connected energetically. We're connected DNA wise as well. And so, how do you treat the people that you're connected to? How do you feel about them? How do you work together with them? How do you bounce your energy off of the other person? Those are the things that we feel when we connect with somebody who energetically aligns with us. It's a real thing. It's actual energy. And so, how do we understanding how to honor that and then put it into practice in our lives?
That is exactly why I started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing is I want people to understand how amazing they are. And there are
Mm-hmm.
some people out there. I was one of them back when I was younger, so lost and so scared and not knowing, and just, I guess, just knowing what you just said, that we are all connected. You are never
Mm-hmm.
alone. If you just ask, you will receive. And if
Mm-hmm.
that is help, if that is love, if that is a
Mm-hmm.
hug, if that, whatever it is, and it's like that whole manifestation thing, but literally I feel like God, source, alien, whatever you believe in, if
Mm-hmm.
you ask, you will get it back, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be okay. That I love the Church of El. I love it. I'm not even kidding. I want to help you write a book because I honestly love the way you think. And I wish everyone did. Like, I really believe that if we could just take your little brain and then like throw it out to the universe so we all get better. But yeah, okay. So I always like to end things with
Mm-hmm.
a little rapid fire fun
Okay.
questions to end on a high note. And so I have a couple
Okay.
of weird questions, and just whatever comes to your brain. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your favorite comfort food?
Cheese.
Oh, me too. Grilled cheese, friggin'
Yeah.
fondue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love cheese.
Aged, very aged cheese.
Okay. What is your
Hmm.
favorite smell?
I'm just going to say lavender because there's so many my favorite smells that I'm just going to say lavender.
Love
Yeah.
it. Mine's grass.
Hmm.
Isn't that weird? It
Mm.
reminds me of
Yeah.
playing
Ooh,
soccer.
I like another smell. I love petrichor.
Really?
Petrichor is the scent of how dirt smells right when it first starts raining. That's
Really?
called petrichor. Yeah.
That's
I
so
love the
crazy.
scent of that.
That's
Hmm.
so crazy. Yeah, no, mine is fresh cut grass. It reminds me of playing
Hmm.
soccer when I was younger. It was my happiest.
Yeah.
That was my happy place, was playing soccer. So,
Yeah.
well, Elle, thank you so much for coming and being a
Mm-hmm.
part of the little Edgy and Ageless family here. And I
Thanks for
am
inviting
so,
me.
of course, yes, I'm so honored. I just love you. You're so amazing. Again, the
Aw.
Church of Elle. If there's anything you want to, anything and everything about Elle will be in the description, meaning her
Mhm,
books, her book, any
mhm,
articles she was going to share, how to get in touch
mhm,
with her, all those things will be in the description. And
mhm.
until then, thank you, Elle. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me,
You
Tracy, and I
bet.
really appreciate it.